Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Okay guys, this is an interesting upload. It certainly was in the back of my mind for quite a while. I'd come across it on numerous occasions, but I didn't see it appropriate to upload it to the archive of related vlogs on the channel. Anyway, I'll let you guys listen in on it, and then I guess we can all form our opinions off the back of it. This, by the way, was recorded back in 2001, just so that you know, or even before that. Allahu Alam. Look it up anyway, please research it and confirm for yourselves.
When I was a corporate manager of Fairchild Industries in 1974 through 77, I met the late Dr. Wernher von Braun in early 74. At that time, von Braun was dying of cancer, but he assured me that he would live a few more years in order to tell me about the game that was being played, that game being the effort to weaponize space, to control the Earth from space and space itself. Von Braun's purpose in life during the last years of his life, his dying years, was to educate the public and decision makers about why space-based weapons are a dumb, dangerous, destabilizing, too costly, unnecessary, unworkable, undesirable idea. The strategy that Wernher von Braun taught me was that first the Russians are going to be considered to be the enemy. In fact, when I met him in 74, they were the enemy, the identified enemy. We were told that they had killer satellites. We were told that they were coming to get us and control us, the dirty commies, that whole story. First, the Russians were the enemy against whom we're going to build space-based weapons. Then terrorists would be identified, and that was soon to follow. We heard a lot about terrorism. Then we were going to identify third world country crazies. We now call them nations of concern. But he said that would be the third enemy against whom we would be needing to build space-based weapons. And the next enemy was asteroids. Now at this point, he kind of chuckled the first time he said it. Asteroids, against asteroids we're going to build space-based weapons. So it was funny then. And the funniest one of all was against what he called aliens, extraterrestrials. That would be the final card. And over and over and over during the 4 years that I knew him and was giving his speeches for him, he would bring up that last card. And remember, Carol, the last card is the alien card. We're going to have to build space-based weapons against aliens, and all of it, he said, is a lie. He didn't mention a timeline, but he said that it was going to be speeding up faster than anybody could possibly imagine, that the effort to put weapons in space was not only based on a lie, but would accelerate past the point of people even understanding it until it was already up there and too late. In 1977, I was at a meeting in Fairchild Industries in a conference room called the War Room. This is 1977, and they were talking about creating a war in the Gulf region when there was $25 billion in the space-based weapons program that yet had not been identified. It wasn't called the Strategic Defense Initiative, at least, until 1983. This weapon system then had obviously been going on for some time that I didn't know anything about. So I stood up in this meeting in 1977 and it said, I'd like to know why we're talking about space-based weapons against these enemies. I'd like to know more about this. Would somebody tell me what this is about? Nobody answered. They went on with this meeting as though I hadn't said anything.
Dr. Carol Rawson is one of over 450 witnesses who have come forward with inside information that they were told to shut up about. That first clip was from the Disclosure Project Witness Testimony series on Google Video. Listen to what she says, because I believe it could be very important. Here's what she said at the Press Club in Washington in 2001.
Good morning, my name is Carol Rawson. In 1974, after being a 6th grade school teacher, I was introduced to the late Dr. Wernher von Braun in the U.S., the father of rocketry. In my first meeting with him, during that first 3.5 hours, he said to me, Carol, you will stop the weaponization of space. And I said, teachers don't stop until June, he said, no, you have to understand, this is February, and we have to prevent the weaponization of space because there is a lie being told to everyone that the weaponization of space is now first being based upon the evil empire, the Russians. There are many enemies, he said, against whom we're going to build this space-based weapon system. The first of whom was the Russians, which was existing at that time. Then there would be terrorists. Then there would be third world countries. Now we call them rogue nations or nations of concern. Then there would be asteroids. And then he would repeat to me over and over, and the last card would be the extraterrestrial threat. Well, at the time, I kind of laughed when he said asteroids, and when he said extraterrestrials, I knew I wasn't going to deal with that subject. And now we hear in the news just today, this week, that they've slid in another enemy. Only this time we're going to protect our satellites. In other words, we have to have some reason to spend these trillions, to waste these dollars on a space-based weapon system, and they're all lies. This is a system, he told me, that would never protect anyone. Even back then, he talked about suitcase bombs. He talked about chemical, viral, bacterial, biological warfare, that these space-based weapons would never protect us against. And then he told me that, in fact, if you travel around the world, which I did after he died in 1977, I met with people in over 100 countries who were friends. They didn't want to build space-based weapons. I became a space and missile defense consultant. And I worked with people around the world. I became an advisor to the People's Republic of China. They don't want to build a space-based weapon system. And he told me back then that they didn't. He said, go to Russia. They're considered to be the enemy. I got on a plane by myself. When I got to Russia, I had a list of people that I had read out of the newspaper. Chernenko was in office then. He was the only one I didn't get a chance to meet. They introduced me to everyone when I got there. And when I got back, I said, oh my Lord, this man is telling the truth. There is no threat. And I've been waiting until this day for 27 years, and I'm expecting the spin to happen, because he also explained to me that as a military strategist, as a person who worked on the MX missile, which I did later, he said, you will find that there is going to be a spin to find some enemy against whom we have to build space-based weapons. And now we should expect the spin, because he said part of the formula for the intelligence community is if they might have a weapon, then we have to consider that they do have these weapons. So now they do have these weapons, so now we have to build these weapon systems. And that's the formula, except that it's all based on a lie. And we have witnesses here today that have shown you that these extraterrestrial beings, that these craft that have come here are now not UFOs, they're identified flying objects, and we know that they have beings in them. And we have witnesses here who have told you that they can shut down our missile silos, they can stop a rocket going into space that's a test. We have witnesses here who have worked in the classified departments, who have the courage to come forward here to support what Wernher von Braun told me back in 1974 to 77. And I will testify before the Congress that when I founded the Institute for Security and Cooperation in Outer Space, which I shut down a few years ago because I didn't believe we had a chance with this huge, integrated around the world, complex weapon system, that we had any chance at all of transforming that war industry into a space industry that could provide benefits, like Dr. Greer has said, of global warming. We can end that situation of that problem. We can end the energy crisis. We can build now non-polluting technologies. Wernher von Braun used to tell me that we could have cars back then that drove around off the ground. He described this to me on beams so that we have no pollution on this planet. And we can solve the problems of the people that are urgent and potential, and the other animals and the other cultures on Earth and in space. And we can end the arms race without dislocating the industry jobs, without disrupting the economy, by transforming, Wernher von Braun told me, the war industry into a global cooperative space industry that will provide, he said, finally, more jobs and profits on this planet than during any hot or cold wartime, more products and services that can be applied directly to solving the problems of this planet. And we can have a whole planet now that lives in peace on Earth, with all the cultures on Earth, and with all extraterrestrial cultures in space. And these are words that Wernher von Braun told me in 1974. And I will testify before the Congress under oath about everything I have said and more. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Now, this is where I take issue. Is you'll find in a lot of narratives you'll find half-truths. Then you'll also get some narratives that have got more than half-truths. Maybe substantial part of it is pretty accurate as to how things have been unfolding and how they are scheming and what it is exactly that they are scheming. Now, in this instance, I understand, at least the Disclosure Project, if you do your research, you'll find is very heavily funded by the Rockefeller Foundation. And as soon as when any sort of philanthropist gets involved behind any one of these kind of sociological sociologically influential organizations, you want to pay attention simply because that's coercing mankind. It's been set up in order to coerce mankind in a certain direction with a certain agenda, a certain narrative. And the Disclosure Project is more based on the government. This organization is trying to prove that extraterrestrial life exists and that the government has been hiding it from the masses, the population of the world. Now again, in this instance, I guess in the Hegelian dialectic, the antithesis would be the government and this organization would be the thesis. Now interestingly enough, if you go back to government and their kind of campaign money and other sort of organizations that support them, you'll find that it's the same sort of influential money, as in sources of money, that basically support both sides of the thesis and the antithesis. And in this instance, you'll find that the Rockefeller and the Rothschilds and other significant others in terms of the financial world are supporting these very same organizations as well as the governments and other institutions. So it seems there's the money's coming from the same sources, the support is coming from the same sources, and then the very same sources are involved in other influential movements that support the very same sort of ideology on both sides of the fence. So in this instance, the last thing that the lady came out with was extraterrestrial life existing. So again, what they do is basically, let's say there's a demographic that becomes privy and are savvy enough to pick up on the delusion being sold to the masses. Then what happens is they'll come to them at a certain juncture where they can basically gazump them and mislead them. And on this particular instance, it's okay, you know what's going on, you're savvy enough, you're smart enough, you know that everything else is a deception. But at the point where you may be somewhere at that stage where you're still kind of uncertain about the reality of ETs or extraterrestrial life, this is where they will basically then take you on a detour and take you by the hand and coerce you and guide you. And this is exactly what this lady has done at the end, where she's spoken, most of what she mentioned is the actual truth. It's only at the end she basically caught her audiences by saying extraterrestrial life exists and we would remain in peace with them. Just so that you guys know and the audience knows, that the only extraterrestrial element to the reality here on Earth is the soul that you've been granted. Okay, and when I say extraterrestrial, what I mean is it's from Alam-e Arwah. Alam-e Arwah is the cosmic plane of souls. Okay, and that cosmic plane of souls, it's somewhere in heaven, somewhere in the seven heavens, somewhere which is not our solar system. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best exactly where that somewhere is. But what can be said about that somewhere, the cosmic plane of souls, is that that's where all the souls, you, who's listening to me at the moment, myself and I, and everyone else that you know who have graced Earth with their presence, who have left, and who will continue to come. All those souls were present in that cosmic plane of souls, which is called Alam-e Arwah in Arabic. That's the only extraterrestrial, I guess, element to us. And the only being that was ever extraterrestrial in nature, in Islam, was Hazrat Adam alayhi salam and Mahara alayhi salam. Why? Is because they came from another territory, an extra territory to planet Earth. They were sent down here after having fallen from grace, after having eaten from a forbidden tree in paradise. Right? And paradise is somewhere else. It's in heaven somewhere. And we certainly don't have the coordinates for it, subhanAllah. But it's in heaven, and it's certainly not on earth. There seems to be some sort of a movement that's driving, at least even in Christianity, where apparently Eden was on earth. This Islam certainly stands against this belief entirely, and so do the Sumerian tablets and the Sumerian ancient Sumerian beliefs hold the same opinion, and that's I think the Sumerian doctrine. I think is going to be a huge deception used during this extraterrestrial contact that's going to be staged soon, and this in and of itself is a deception. But anyway, I mean, I just wanted to upload this. There's some good that we can glean from it. It's always good to listen to the disinfo as well in order to juxtapose against the true narratives. Once you kind of develop a discerning eye and a discerning set of ears, then you'll be able to filter and process the nonsense, and you'll be able to see actually much more clearly of what's going on and how it's going on, and how many multi faceted psyops that are taking place in different locations, within different demographics, within different subject matters, and all of them seem to be kind of basically seem to have the grubby fingerprints of Shaitan Lanatullahi alayhi all over them. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. Anyway, I certainly felt that this was an interesting share, again, with relations to the PDF signs and what's been laid out in it. Jazakallahu khairan wa sallu jaza for your time, guys. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.